If you're a Turo host, what I'm about to show you could quietly cut your income and you may not even realize it. On top of that, Turo's also made a change to their terms of service that they have made quietly. That's very, very noteworthy. Turo is about to change how they actually pay out their hosts. And this isn't some small update that's just buried in the terms. This changes how much you earn depending on what Turo decides is risk. After building the largest exotic car rental fleet in all of San Diego, consistently doing $100,000 to $150,000 a month and clearing 7 figures a year in revenue, I've seen this happen time and time again. And if you're full-time on Turo, this should concern you. Let's break it down. Up until now, Turo's payout structure is actually very simple. You pick a protection plan based on your risk assessment, and your deductible kind of changes based on how much risk you think you can take, right? So I take, for example, the 90-10 plan, meaning if I have a car going for $100 a day, I take $90 a day, Turo takes $10 a day. That puts a protection plan on my vehicles. That way, Turo is acting as the insurance company in case anything happens to my vehicle while it's on a rental, minus my deductible. So in the 90-10 plan, my deductible is $2,750, which is a pretty big number. Nonetheless, I'm not diving into the details of protection plans in this video, but at the bottom of it, this is simple and this is very predictable. You can exactly calculate how much you're gonna earn based on the prices that you're putting out for your vehicles. But now, that is no longer how it's going to work in the future. Now, the payouts are gonna be adjusted based on risk assessment. If someone, for example, books your car within a 2-day notice on Turo might actually only pay you if you're on the 90-10 plan, which they've actually changed the name to the max earn plan because they're getting ready to make this change. If you get a booking that's 2 days out, within 2 days, Turo might consider it a high risk booking. And they actually might only pay you 85% of the earnings instead of 90%. Now on the flip side, if someone books further in advance, let's say they book a week before the trip is supposed to start, 4 or 5 days before the trip is supposed to start, Turo might pay you anywhere from 95 to 98% of what that trip total is. So now your income isn't just based on your protection plan. It's actually based on how Turo scores the booking. This is a massive shift because guess what? You still own the car, you're still paying the note, you're still paying the maintenance, you're still paying your insurance, and you're essentially the one that's still taking all the risk. Even though Turo's self-insured and they are paying out for these claims, you are the one at the end of the day that has to pay a hefty deductible. You don't have control over the types of clients that are in your vehicle. So if your vehicle goes down, even if you have a note on the car and you have a big gap between your note and what the payout is, then you are taking the loss there. If Turo gives you market value of your vehicle that is not satisfactory to what you need to get paid for the car, there's really no way to negotiate that. Now with traditional insurance companies, and I made a previous video about one of my cars that was just totaled on Turo and how you can actually bump up your valuation, but it's not based on negotiations on market values of vehicles in your area. It's based purely on what options were missing from the initial valuation, right? So you're taking a potential loss there. Again, if you have a big gap in your note, you're gonna have to pay the balance if a vehicle is totaled or stolen. If there's other damage, Turo's been notorious for not wanting to pay the full amount. They do a very, very lowball offer from their software called Snapsheet. Now, a lot of body shops work with Snapsheet and they input supplementals to try to get you paid more for your claims. But there's plenty of situations out there where Turo hosts are stuck footing the bill for a hefty deductible and they have to pay the body shop extra on top of what Turo is giving them because the Snapsheet and what the body shop is quoting and all these different parties involved are not favorable to hosts. So that's another huge risk that you're taking, right? Whenever a car gets in an accident. Plus, you're also the one that's losing the revenue because the car is on downtime. Let's not forget, you're also the one running the operation. So you have all the operational expenses, of course, fixed costs and variable costs. Now, on top of that, there's gonna be even more variables. Your revenue is going to fluctuate based on their internal risk model. This is why it is bigger than it actually looks. If you're just a casual host, this might not feel like a big deal to you. But if this is your full-time income, this changes things a lot. Your margins are becoming less predictable. Your forecasting is becoming a lot harder, and you're no longer going to have full clarity of what your payouts are actually going to be. And that's the part that people are missing because this is not just about a 5% change in your income. It is about control. Over the years, Turo has centralized more and more decision making when it comes to your vehicles. Pricing algorithms are changing. Trip approvals, you're no longer allowed to decide whether you take a trip or not. Damage handling has changed dramatically and payouts seem to be getting lower and lower, as well as increasing many delays. Many hosts that I've spoken to and networked with are seeing a way increased delay in payouts for accidents and total vehicles. Customer communication is changing, and now the cherry on top, your payout percentage is decided by a risk of whatever Turo determines. Every time a platform makes a structural change like this, it is a very stern reminder of something important. You don't own the rules, you don't own the platform, and you don't own the business. Turo owns the business. In my opinion, this is very, very wrong because a lot of Turo hosts that run their business full-time on Turo or looking to pivot full-time on Turo are under the assumption that they run their own business. And it's becoming clearer by the day that this is not the case. And honestly, Turo is just wrong for doing this. And they are facing, I think, a lot of trouble on the back end, and I'll get into that in a minute. And for those who are serious about building this properly, there is a way to work with me directly one-on-one. Just click the first link in the description to find out how. Now we're getting into a topic that is very important that Turo has also recently made a change of. It just has not been announced. And so this is a very, very sneaky thing that happened on the background, and I'm happy to elaborate. Turo has quietly removed their exclusivity clause. Previously, if your car was listed on the Turo platform, technically by their terms of service, you were not allowed to list on other platforms. You were not allowed to list on platforms like GetAround. There's been other competitions to Turo, and technically speaking, you're not even supposed to list for private rentals. That doesn't mean you couldn't do it. You just could not use the same vehicles with the same VINs that were listed on Turo and list them elsewhere. That was grounds for removal from the Turo platform and was a strict no-no. Now, theoretically, you can. Turo terms of service has changed. And of course, they didn't announce this change because they don't want you capitalizing on this change. Theoretically, now you can do private rentals, list on other platforms, and start utilizing integrations like Wheelbase to entertain private rentals. I'm not gonna get too deep into that, but it is worth noting. Now let's talk about why didn't they make the announcement of removing this exclusivity clause. To me, this is a major change within Turo. And what's the thought process behind not announcing it to the public? Here's the kicker. Platforms don't give up control like this voluntarily. Now, this is just pure speculation from what I've gathered, and none of this is confirmed, but sometimes structural changes like this happen on major billion-dollar-plus platforms for a reason. And that's because of regulatory pressure. Whether that's the case here or not, something is clearly shifting within Turo. On one hand, they're reducing payouts for higher risk bookings, which you're the one taking all the risk on. On the other hand, they're loosening exclusivity. That tells me that the ecosystem is actually evolving. Why would Turo put out a change that essentially can take away from their business? Now, of course, you're not supposed to poach your customers from Turo. That's still something that they highly emphasize and is considered a gray market transaction. So if a customer comes from Turo and you try to convince them to book outside of Turo, that is still against the term of service. I do not recommend doing that, but there has to be something that made them make this shift and make it quietly. Why didn't they announce one of the biggest pieces of their terms of service that's been around since the beginning of Turo? Again, my speculation is some sort of regulatory pressure that maybe they're facing investigations or some kind of lawsuits. Again, this is all just speculation, but there has to be a bigger reason why they would give up control when they're tightening control across all of the aspects of their business and their platform. But here's the bigger issue in all of this. If your entire income depends on a single platform, and that platform can, whenever they want, just change fee structure, risk scoring, visibility, terms of service, payout percentages, you don't fully control your business. You're just operating inside someone else's system. And history shows us what happens when someone is dependent within someone else's platform. Amazon sellers have seen it. Airbnb hosts have seen it. Etsy sellers have seen it. Policy shifts happen. Margins tighten up. Rules change. The operators who survive long terms are the ones that adapt early, not after it's too late. Me, personally, I've never, ever built my entire operation around one platform and depended on that platform. I have, in all my time, actually starting in private rentals, but focused on building private rental relationships and ecosystems around that, exploring off-platform booking structures, capturing repeat customers, and looking at multiple distribution options. Because platforms optimize for themselves first, and they're worried about their bottom line and not yours. Now, all in all, these Turo updates are not catastrophic, but it is a signal. And we, as smart operators, pay attention to signals. If you're full-time on Turo, I would strongly recommend that you truly start thinking long-term. The last thing you want is for Turo to make massive changes in their platform, you get kicked off of the platform, or they go out of business. If you're serious about building a car rental business that actually lasts and not just survives platform updates to where you're literally having to reconfigure your whole bottom line every few months, you need to watch the video that's sitting on the screen right now. And if you want more breakdowns like this where we actually talk strategy, not just surface level news, please make sure you subscribe to my channel, because when platforms change, we adapt. I'll see you in the next video.